So it's wonderful that we had the question about how do we share or teach or communicate this to other folks, because the next two talks, or actually it's at some level one set of thoughts split across two people, is about research computing facilitation. So facilitation is something that's near and dear to our hearts here at CHTC. So I'm really happy to introduce our lead facilitator, Christina Koch, who will be starting it off, talking about research computing facilitation in general, maybe for the AI era, or maybe for any era. And it'll be followed by Danny Morales, who will talk about one particular case over the last year with AlphaFold. So, Christina?
Didn't check. Oh, it is on. Great. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Christina. I'm the lead facilitator at CHTC and for the PATH project. And as Brian said, we're kind of slightly switching gears here to just facilitation topics in general. And so I'll be talking more generally about facilitation to start. And so to begin, I thought we'd start in the past. So where have we been? So it turns out research computing facilitation as a practice, as a set of principles, is a teenager. Da, 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 da. It was our first facilitation job posting was in 2013. So I hope I did that math right. I have 2 math degrees, so one would hope. But, and really grew out of this belief that it's not enough to have amazing technological capabilities and infrastructure. If you want the true impact of those things for research and science to be realized, you need facilitation, you need people. And so we've been doing this now. We sort of originated this concept and the term, and we've been doing it for 13 years. So we meet with a lot of people. We support, to me, a measure of the success of this model is the diversity of departments and centers we serve. We're no longer in the days of, everybody in engineering uses the cluster, but nobody in the life sciences or nobody in the social sciences, as we just heard from Saloni, that we are really trying to reach as many people as possible, and that has to be done through human effort. And similarly on the OS pool, that we have this diversity of projects, and that people are really getting a lot of throughput. They're getting a lot of work done. And as part of that vision, obviously we are the R1, an R1 that has some of these capabilities, but we want to support this kind of transformative effects. I think as Jason so beautifully articulated earlier, at smaller institutions, and that this is really something that is needed to help move the needle for different groups. So one thing we're doing now is we do presentations, campus visits. These pictures are from La Crosse earlier in May, where we went out and we chatted with some folks. And I'm really interested in talking with people at small institutions or any institutions really about what you want out of facilitation, what you see it potentially accomplishing for your campus, how to get it done. And my secret agenda is that I'll start at the bottom. I see facilitation is a methodology that we're developing alongside the technologies that we develop. And so it's part of that puzzle. And so we have to keep iterating and thinking about what we're doing and hearing from others and moving that process forward. I felt like if I was going to talk about facilitation, I had to give a definition. Then I sat and stared at the title of this slide for more than I probably should have. I was like, well, what is facilitation? So this is one definition. I think it's about leveraging human capabilities in contrast to technical capabilities or structural capabilities. It's about human capabilities, both in terms of the facilitator and the person they're working with, to advance outcomes through computing. And so I think that's really reflected in this first principle of partnerships. Marone talked about trust, is that this is not just a we're the person behind the wall throwing solutions over at you when you throw problems at us, right? But that we're meeting, we're talking about needs, that there's a discussion of ownership. These are the things that you're responsible for. These are the things that I'm responsible for. And ultimately, this is the one that's most challenging in my role, is being technology agnostic. And again, I really liked Jason's slide that was like helping people identify which path is right for them. Of course, I'm paid by a certain grant. So, I'm always going to have a vested interest in furthering the outcomes of that grant, but also having that sense of like, what is really best for the researcher, and not necessarily getting into the technical nitty gritty, like what concepts do researchers need to be productive? So there's a little about facilitation. So if that's what it is, and it's a methodology, I feel like can't really have a talk at a conference and not talk a little bit about AI. So we're going to do a short discussion, because this is a question I've been thinking about a lot. People are like, oh, agents are going to do this, AI is going to replace you. It's like, so how has our life changed? And does that mean facilitation changes or needs to change? So, spoiler alert, stealing a slide from our esteemed director, we'll just say there's nothing new under the sun. Okay, but let's go into a little more detail. So one thing we've seen is struggles on the login node. So we have this lovely graph where you can see this big spike where someone's agent very kindly was like, I'll run that for you on the login node, right? Agents don't know that they're not supposed to run things on the login node. Maybe the users don't either. They can obscure what's being run. They use resources themselves. And so this is a technical problem, can be a technical problem. How do you protect your login node? But it's also a facilitation problem. How do you convey the responsibilities of using a shared system with a researcher in, I don't know, a thoughtful way, a way they understand, a way that they can act upon? And I think we'll talk about some of the things we're trying. I don't know if Ian's actually going to talk about this on Friday, but we're going to talk about this particular problem a bit more later in the week. So this is a big one. How many of you have used an agent to help you write code? Okay, that's most hands. So our users are the same way. And results are mixed. We've seen a lot of the classics. Inputs are hallucinated. Agents are really good at finding the like super obscure options in the manual. Use site-specific options. So we have sometimes OSG stuff and CHTC stuff, and people get them mixed. Sometimes it works for people. I want to say that. I think this is a really helpful tool for some people in eliminating the blank slate. But there have been some disasters. So Brian will talk about one of our disasters tomorrow, where an agent helpfully suggested like, oh, you could change these kinds of jobs to local jobs. And it did that, and the access points started like crash looping. So, then we figured out what went wrong and so on. So I think there's, again, from a facilitation perspective, we still have to provide information to people and to models in a way that they can use that's helpful to them. And finally, communication challenges. So researchers will ask an agent rather than emailing us. And I think there's some good things about it. It does give that immediate feedback that people really want. Can sometimes mean we don't hear about issues promptly. It can also lead to this sort of telephone effect. So this is a real email that came in where a user was like, oh, I can't submit new jobs. And it had all these different error messages, which was good. And then their suggestion, no user is going to come up with that suggestion on their own unless they're like James Clark. But if a user just sent us that, that's not helpful at all, right? So we just have there are more people involved, entities involved in the communication process. And so it's challenging. It is really helpful if someone tells us they used an agent, because then we know to read with that lens. And sometimes there are really good suggestions, sometimes not. So that's just the way it is. But to tie back to my previous slide, these are not new problems. How many of you have like written or seen a guide that was like, don't run processes on the login node? How many of you have run processes on the login node anyway? Yeah. You know, especially the agents as coding helpers, researchers that have been running commands they don't understand forever. Like, again, how many of you, there was a document in the lab, if you were a researcher, that was like, run this, run this, run this, and you had no idea what it did, but that's how you ran your workload. Maybe you don't have to reveal yourself, but it's pretty common. And users have always wanted to understand right away what's happening and sent us cryptic emails that don't have helpful information, right? So I think what I've taken away from the past couple months of sort of interfacing with users using AI as a facilitator is that these are problems we've had. They have gotten faster, bigger, more common. We definitely see a lot more edge cases. It really does feel a little bit sometimes like the users are Wile E. Coyote on the rocket. It's like, oh, what's going to happen? You don't know. And so my takeaway is these are all things that we should have been doing anyway, are doing anyway, and tie back to those principles of facilitation that we have to communicate about our responsibilities, that we have to build relationships and communicate with each other and provide good guidance and improve what we're doing, keep iterating and keep being better. And this is, you know, sort of a kick in the pants. Be like, all right, let's do this. Let's make more progress in this area. And so, you know, we started facilitation 13 years ago, and I think as Jason's talk made a compelling case for, it's needed now more than ever for the reasons we started in the beginning, making outcomes possible for research and teaching. But I think it's also needed more than ever because there's a lot of change happening in the world. And maybe we also need to change in different ways, but we at least have a starting reference point for what we're trying to accomplish and why. And that can inform how we proceed in what comes next. And so we have both, I wanted to say we're not experts, so I'm going to say it anyway. We're not experts. We have years of experience, and I think we're still not experts. We're still learning, and there are a lot of new opportunities again. I mean, we have a whole new grant, so lots to be done. And so I'm looking forward to that, and also interested in, you know, we've had our experiences. What are your experiences? What does it take to get facilitation into different institutions, different centers, and how can we all partner to make that happen? So I will take questions in a minute, but some of you may be like, Christina, but what about people who want to actually run AI? Like, how are you helping them? So that will be the next talk, where we'll dive a little more into like AI workloads. What have we learned? And I think it's a really great example. Danny will be talking about our experiences with supporting AlphaFold 3. And it's a really great example of what, again, Jason alluded to this morning, that sometimes we need to do a little extra effort to really understand a problem and support a community. And there's a tension there between the sort of facilitation, we just kind of guide, but we don't get in and get our hands dirty. So look forward to Danny sharing all the AlphaFold experience we have. But while we're transitioning, I can take questions. Thank you.
So to kick things off, to buy Danny time to get down here and switch the slides, I can see, you know, think of something like the ticketing systems support, where in some cases users can solve their own problems and maybe not come to the facilitation team for easy problems, whatever easy it might be. And I can see cases where they creates worse problems and they do something completely wacky, or normal, whatever that might be, beginning user might have attempted. Do you have a feeling or kind of personal opinion on the whole? Which, you know, has it gotten better? Has it gotten worse? Has it gotten different? Is it
like, are there
has it-
fewer kind of basic, easy questions because people have these tools to.
Has
help them.
it changed qualitatively what you and your team do?
I mean, I'm looking at the rest of the team. My sense is not really. I think probably stuff we don't see is that people are a little more confident and like, before they'd be like, I don't even know where to start. And now they can say something to ChatGPT and it gives them something back. So we miss that initial query if they really don't know where to start. But after that point, I don't know. I feel like it's about the same. Is that okay? I'm getting nods from the other side of the room. So agreement. Any other questions? Cannon.
I was curious on on your side of the house of facilitation. Have you seen better outcomes potentially using AI to help troubleshoot their problems? Where like on our side, when we do facilitation, we're rarely the expert in the science that they're working on. But because what they're working on may be well documented, we're able to use that as context to help us help them, or at least go through some ideation instead of starting from zero every time.
Yeah. So is your question, are we able to better troubleshoot issues? Yeah. To be honest, not a ton. I don't know. I mean, a lot of the issues are things are common issues. We know, that someone can't submit jobs. We have common things we look for and look at. I think probably most of us have plugged an error message in, but we are also not engaging at the level of like, does your code work? Why is this producing wrong results? It's purely what I sometimes call mechanical. Like you give us this black box and we run it. And if the running breaks, that's our responsibility. But what's happening in the black box, we don't pay as much attention to. So I think that's a kind of combination of things. Yeah. Yeah.
I guess for us, where we look to documentation and maybe put that in AI for more context, you're the people that wrote the documentation, so like you have all that context. For us, it's another layer that may be helpful.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Go ahead, Kurt.
Do you use your records of interactions, questions and answers as a data set to be analyzed? I mean,
yeah, it's not. So the question is, do we use, our records and our notes as a data set to be analyzed? We haven't to this point. We keep certain metrics about like number of conversations, and certainly we have an informal, I think, draft of like FAQ common questions, but we haven't done any formal analysis. So it's a good question though. All right, I'm gonna turn it over to Danny because I want to make sure. Matt, can he have like 25 minutes? Okay, great. Wonderful.
Right. Thank you, Christina.